Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the first the inaugural All Things Juneteenth lecture series. And so today is the beginning of the series that we will present monthly at this point. And I am Dr. Cassie Sade Turnipseed. I'm a professor of history at Jackson State University as well as Mississippi Valley State University. So this being our inaugural event, I'd like to quickly just go over the concept of all things Juneteenth lecture series. It's Juneteenth History 101 is how we like to phrase it. It's being presented in partnership with the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, Khafre Inc., and the History and Philosophy departments at Jackson State University. So what is Juneteenth? Well, Juneteenth is an annual observance to celebrate the date Union soldiers enforced the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all remaining enslaved people in Galveston, Texas, on June 19, 1865. Texas was one of the last states in rebellion following the end of the Civil War to allow enslavement. Although the rumors of freedom were widespread prior to this, actual emancipation was not announced in the last few states practicing enslavement until General Gordon Granger came to Galveston, Texas, and issued General Order Number 3 on the 19th of June. Almost 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. So Juneteenth is also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day. It is a holiday celebrating the emancipation of those who had been enslaved in the United States. So with that, our meeting today will begin with phase 1, the African Americans and how we got here. It is a story that must be told and must be remembered by all Americans, and I would venture to say by all humans who are concerned with. Okay, so today we will have our inaugural presentation to kick things off. And this is truly a dear, dear, dear friend of mine who has always stepped up with her storytelling talents for every single production that I've done here in Mississippi. But not only that, she's a historian, she's a storyteller, like I said, she's an innovator, mover and shaker. She's the founder of the Fannie Lou Hamer Museum and Historic Site in Belzoni, Mississippi, the James Lee Museum. She is the mother of the cotton fields. She comes through when the spirit is right, when the moment is perfect, to teach, to instruct, to share the voices of the ancestors, our ancestors who bled, cried, screamed. And it's because of her that today we will hear from the voices of the ancestors. So what I would like for you to do at this moment is to close your eyes just for a moment and feel the energy and the spirit of your ancestors. Just for a moment, go with me as we allow the voices of the ancestors to speak. Just for a moment, close your eyes. The next voice you will hear is that of the ancestors. Is the old storyteller here?
Oh, he's telling me about the meeting being recorded. I just want to make sure my children can have me out there. Well, it took me a while. Their short day, but the old lady finally made it. I'm sitting here on the front porch of the shotgun shack. Disappointed, my children. But I'm so glad that y'all all gathered around to hear Mama Lula one more time. You know, we've been had some trying times, children. And I've been sitting here while we've been trying to get this here, what's in my thing all hooked up. and I've been reflecting about where we come from. I've been had a lot of conversations with the young folks, and the old lady been troubled in her spirit. But I had to remind my young people where they come from. And some of them is still confused, y'all. But I was telling them not long ago, children, that we come from a place where time began. Or we come from a place that the name was confusing to some folks. So they decide to call us Africans from Africa. But we come from the motherland. We come from the place where the great creator scooped down in the earth. And when he scooped down in the earth, what he did was form my daddy out of the clay. You see, we come from the place. That was the question that the young folks had. Old lady, I hear you always talking about the plantation. But I said, children, we go back further than the Southern States plantation. We go all the way back, our ancestors, to the motherland of Africa. And I'm always trying to explain to them about Akabulian, and some of them call them Acadian. But I tell them, children, you need to know where you come from. Some of them call it by one name, others call it by another. But before it was called Africa, it had many other names. But I have to get my children to understand that we were a strong, viable people. And they want to know, old storyteller, what you're talking about. I told them that where we come from, our people, we knew how to love one another. We have sometimes trouble about loving each other. But in some of the villages where my grandmama came from, she would tell us the story, children. And she would say that if one person in the village didn't have no food, he didn't have to work. If a child in the village mama had died, then the women of the village became the mother of that child. You don't find all of that hospitality a lot of times in our own neighborhoods. But I tell them about that place where our fathers and forefathers was kings and queens. I tell them about that place where the old pale-faced man came one day. And we were out there in the land minding our own business. And the old seer, you see, we have what they called back then conjurers, and some of us call them seers. But the old seer tried to warn us that the spirit of darkness is coming. And children, we didn't listen like we should. Not in me, but my mother's mothers, that they were warned by the old seer that one day they'll be coming. And when they come, they ain't gonna mean us no good. So they drop their guard, children. And when they drop their guard down, the old pale-faced man came on a ship one day. And he looked and he seen that our men were strong men that could withstand the sun. And he watched our women, and he saw our women and our people, and he come among our people. At first, they was afraid because they had never seen a pale-faced man before. Some of them thought he was a ghost, and others might have even thought he was a spirit. But the brave king got close enough to notice, he got a shadow. He must be human like us. Strange looking human. And he had to put his best brave face on, Mama be saying. He got close enough, and he said he got eyes like me. He got a nose and 2 ears. Must be just another human being. Biggest mistake they could have made, children. He wasn't just another human being. But like the old seer said, he was like the devil in disguise, coming among our people. The old seer said, one day, I'm warning y'all now. And the king got close enough to touch him. He be flushing blood like me. Thought he was a friend, but he was a foe. He wasn't no friend. And our people got kind heart. They invited the pale-faced man in. And when they invited him in, children, he learned our way. And he was like a spy among our people, strange looking fella. And he docked that ship, and for 20 years or more, he studied our people and our ways, said the old storyteller. And finally, one day, he decided that he had enough information. He noticed that some of our people, they had wars among different tribes. And the stronger one would enslave the weaker one. And he watched it for a long time. And soon, it wasn't long before he came up with a plan in his mind that he could go back to America, or he could go back to Europe, or he could go back to England. He would leave the motherland. And when he leaves the motherland, he would go and tell them of this people. And that deceiver left. He fixed that old ship up. And when he returned, he had got Queen Elizabeth to buy into his story that he would bring back slaves. Oh, and he had his pick of the litter. Mama said he knew how our people operate. But what they didn't understand was our people had wars and they had slaves. But once they served their time, they were never to be enslaved again. And slavery, as it was in Africa, was never like it would be in this place called America. But he loaded the ships up with our people from Bullion, Acadian. He loaded them up and brought them back to the Queen, and they made our people slaves. Not only were they in the Americas, but they was all over the place before it would end up. And we would make our way to an unknown horror, to our own sorrow. We would put on board the slave ship. Children, I want y'all to understand that many of them that was on board that ship, they were kidnapped. Many of them. Some of them were sold into slavery. And believe it or not, some of our own people had a hand in it. Some of our people had a hand in it. But children, be that as it may, I want you to know today that we made our way through that thing called triangle tree. Oh, on board those ships, Mama said the spirit of death was on board because some of our people refused to be slaves. They would rather die than to continue to live under the circumstances. And when they got the opportunity to come on board, a lot of them, Mama said, they jumped overboard. They shot bait for the sharks. But Mama said there was some that was on board that ship, children. They was determined to live and not to die. They ate food that their bellies and died wasn't used to, Mama said. And all of the innards, just everything they ate was just all over the place. And Mama said they had to lay there. And when they, Mama said, when they used the bathroom, is a decent word for it, they laid there. And Mama said they was packed together, chilling like sardines. I know a lot of y'all young folks may not never heard the old woman tell the story. But be that as it may, and all the things that we suffered, my children, I want you to know there was another spirit. The spirit of the light that got on board. And one of the seers, she saw our people one day come into a land where they could thrive and survive, and the situation would be better. And from that day forward, she told them on board that slave ship, she said, we must struggle to live and not to die. She said the power of darkness is overshadowing this ship. And the power of darkness, the people came down with a disease of the mind called melancholy. And when it struck them, they gave up and decided not to live. But as Mama told the story, I could see hope in the story. Because Mama said that there were those that refused to die. Even under the circumstances that they were in, Mama said they looked to the light. And the old seer began in the bottom of the boat. The old seer began to hit the bottom of the boat with her heel. She began to make a sound
Oh, and every time she hit the bottom of the boat, the chains around her ankles, they would make a certain sound. And the sound would go boom, ba-suka, boom, ba-suka, boom, ba-suka. And she said, listen, my children, at the music that be playing. And they thought maybe something was wrong because they couldn't hear what the old seer that had got on board that ship that day had saw. She said, we must make a new sound. We must tune into the spirit. We must seek to live and not to die. She encouraged them not to get up. And soon, children, they would be on the auction block. Soon they would be sold, children. But they remembered what the old seer told them. She said, I see you being separated. She said, but if you can remember that it is more strength among our people than you realize, because the ancestors would never leave us, neither will we ever be alone. And she told that story to all who would listen, and they were able to survive. But now we in America, oh yes, we are on the auction block now, and we are being sold from plantation to plantation. And now we learn a whole nother type of slavery and bondage in this place called America. Our people would hunger for freedom. Mothers would have children, and they would be snatched from their breasts. But we know the power of the old seer and the story that she told, that we are a powerful people, and we were to live and survive and not die. And those that were on board that ship kept telling the story of survival. And when a mother lost her child, it was a hurtful thing. But when the power of the old seer, the spirit of the ancestors would embrace that woman, she knew that one day life would be better. And they began to look because there was hope. They began to look because now they have what they learned to be as faith. And now the old seer on the plantation says, learn, remember our story, and tell it everywhere you go. Let us not forget who we are and where we come from. Some call it by one name, others call it by another. But we know that we are that fruit that's deep-rooted from the African continent. And because we are that fruit, we will continue to survive. They raped our women. They lynched our men. They taken our children. But we refuse to give up. We won't quit. Because of hope, we one day will stand together united, and the realization of freedom will be ours. But now we're in America, and now we are slaves, and now our life is a constant struggle of labor. But one day, another old seer from a whole nother village, because from Africa there were many languages, or many tribes, another old seer told another story. She said, my children, she said, I feel the freedom of coming. My children, I feel the freedom of coming. And they looked at the old woman, and they thought she had lost her mind. It was somewhere around September the 22nd in 1862. You see, the war done already broke out. And the old lady told them that she felt death. She heard the old owl crying. Oh, and the woman went to the doorstep, and she turned the shoes upside down. She turned her pockets inside out. But the old owl kept coming back because in 1861, April the 12th, the first shot was going to be fired that was going to start the Civil War. And then the word got out that war done broke out. And the old lady said freedom would be in this war. And people thought she was crazy, but she was right. Because in 1861, on April the 12th at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, they fired the first shot. The Civil War began. But it wasn't nothing to do with slavery, not at first. But it was more about the union and the separation. But one day, September the old seer got a message from the Spirit, and it says freedom will be coming. And this was in 1862. And the old seer again was called a fool. But the old seer began to pack her bags. They said she be lost her mind. Pay her no never mind. And then a few months later, old President Abraham Lincoln, they said, we're just waiting on the opportunity, children, to declare January the 1st, 1863, that all slaves held in those Confederate states is for henceforth now and forevermore free. And that old lady had cause for celebration. Oh, but she said, wait a minute, children. Something's standing between us and this so-called freedom. Something is standing between us. Oh, Abraham Lincoln said, now all the slaves in the border states are free. But oh, something was holding them back. It was because the old master didn't want the slaves to know they'd be free. Some of them had heard the rumor, but it didn't do them no never mind, did them no good. But the old seer kept the bags packed. And oh, it took them a little while too. Oh, but somewhere around November, the old seer got the bags with them up under the bed. And the old seer changed the clothes around. She put a heavy coat. Had some moss. Had 8 on it, but she took that coat and she put it in the bag. That was November, children. Because on December the 6th, today is 150-some year anniversary of the abolishment of slavery, children. That's why I call all y'all together. The day is a day of celebration. Every day that something about freedom was about to happen. September the 22nd, 1862. Lincoln gave them a warning, free the slaves. And he gave them a deadline. We found out later yet. It was January the 1st, 1863. He said, henceforth and forevermore. The first slave that was actually free, children, was them plantation slaves in the South. We was free. Yeah, we was free. Before the Emancipation Proclamation was announced on January the 1st, the old seer said, it's coming, but something's in the way. But come December, the old lady that already had packed that moth-eaten coat, she pulled the bags out. On December the 6th, the announcement said, now slavery have been eradicated throughout the United States of America. Our people had cause for celebration. From the motherland of Africa, becoming slaves on board of a slave ship, the journey through the triangle trade, then the plantations and all of the injustices that enslaved Africans would suffer. And now the old seer rejoicing because it was cause for celebration. The mothers that have shedded many tears over the years, they had ways. They tell their daughters, said, baby, when master take you from mama, just look to the North Star and mama will be holding you right there. She said, mama will rock you like a baby in a cradle. One thing time and space cannot separate is how a mother feels about her child. And even they had secret messages through music and signs and wonders. The mother said, baby, when you be troubled, because we master done done, mama will be looking every night to the north. And every day when the sun rises in the east, the old African woman that swallows the God, that swallows up the sun and is rebirthed through her lungs every day. She told them about the God that makes a day reborn. She said, in the east, mama will be looking because hope lies in knowing where the connection from the motherland be. December the 6th, 150-some years or so ago, slavery was abolished in the United States of America. Children, that's why I call y'all. Today is called for celebration.
And we sit here every year. And I talk to y'all about them days because they important. January 1st, 1863. December the 6th, 1865. Yes, but we still had a fight on our hands because when we walked out of one form of slavery, children, we walked right into another. We've been struggling for human and civil rights ever since. And I've been sitting here on this front porch encouraging y'all to live and love and to stay together because we got tribes from Africa. When one hungry, everybody make sure they get something to eat. Don't one shine above the other. I got mine, you get yours. But we are people in villages right now from Africa that still looks out for her people. Let us become once more who we are. Oh yes, Akabulian, Acadian, whatever you call it today, my children, know that you come from the place that was more of the region before it become a continent that is known by other names, but the last name was Arcadian. Late name Africa. That's your roots, my children. The day of your freedom from slavery in America was December the 6th. It was ratified, 1865. And we still struggling for human rights. We still struggling today. But the struggle lies with you, my child. It lies with you, and you. Because now it's a lot more about each of us than it ever will be anyone else. For the power of freedom lies within us. The power of liberation lies within us. It's right at our hand. Grab a hold to it, if you will. Now, my children, I'm so glad. We had a hard time getting together today. That's because the day is the day that slavery was abolished in the United States of America. The day is the day that we are reminded about it was more blood shed on American soil than any soil of any war that had ever been fought. The war between the states, right here in this here United States. And it ended up being a war about slavery. And Lincoln was killed because he was predestined. He was chosen for December the 6th, 1865. Let's keep on the journey to freedom. But we first got to free our minds, children, because many of us have gotten the shackles off of our feet, and now they're on our minds. So the old lady's so glad you stopped by. We're facing a whole lot of things now. We're struggling with racism. We're struggling with all kinds of illness and diseases. But children, the same God that have brought us all this distance, He's going to take us the rest of the way. Will you believe with me today? Now, I don't know, some of y'all might have a question or two for the old lady, but I want you to know I love you. And we come from the place where time began, where love and joy and peace was what we was all about. And yeah, we had problems, and we had wars, and we had slaves, but it's nothing like what we would face once we got to America and our struggle for freedom and liberation. Do any of my children got anything to say to the old lady before I go take my nap?
Let's do that.
Wonderful,
Oh,
wonderful.
you make the old lady feel
Thank
good.
you.
Yes. So questions.
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. I think that was very, very well presented, and I'm so glad that I had a chance to sit here and partake in it.
Thank you, honey. And you know what? You look like you kind of handsome, too. I've been married 13 times. You better watch out. You'll be number 14, boy.
Thank you.
There you go. Well, Mother of the Cotton Field, tell us about that. You're the old storyteller on the front porch today, but in many instances, you reflect on that life that our ancestors, grandmama knew, had to live. I mean, just for a moment, I don't want you to go deep because I know it's a painful story as well, but what was it like picking cotton?
Baby, we would get up early in the morning. Some of y'all know it by candy cane. From the time we could barely see our foot one in front of the other to the time that the sun would go down. And we would work all day long on this here plantation. And don't care how hard we worked for old master, there was still more work to do. And we didn't have time many times, child, baby, we didn't have time for ourselves. And when we got off of the plantation from candy cane, from dawn to dark, we had to go home and make sure we had some tea for our family to eat. And a lot of times, baby, it wasn't nothing but bread and onion. But we made a meal, we made a way out of no way. And our rationings wouldn't hold up that the old master would give us. And master didn't want us to have no big garden because they was afraid, baby, that we would become independent. They was afraid that we would take the vegetables and things that we could raise right around the side of our houses or the little truck patches they might give us. And we would go selling them. And did you know it was against the law for a slave to sell anything? And even after we got out of slavery on the plantation night, they tried to make sure that we didn't never have anything so we could get ahead. So we was always struggling, baby. And when they had as many children as my mama had 19 children. But I want you to know something. After slavery, they could no longer get us in after they couldn't smuggle us in no more and buy us from other plantation owners or buy us out of the north after they gained more territory in the south, you know, for cotton and stuff, because the land had just what you said, mama said, got rotten, baby. And we was about to hope that slavery was going to be over. And then they added more land to the territory and it started all over again. But you know how they tricked the folk? They kept us so poor, baby, working till our hands bled sometimes, blisters. And many times the old master had a scale, and the scale wasn't fair. But we worked on them their plantations after slavery, and they called it sharecropping, baby, but it was just another form of slavery. But how they increased the number of people on the plantation to work in the fields. Did you know that they would pay a woman to have children? And they had what they call a buck. He was going around from plantation to plantation impregnating them. And a lot of women got pregnant every year and had babies about the same time so that they could get more rationing, and they were paying them, encouraging them to have babies. Sometimes the price was $50, and if it was a boy, you got paid more than you did for a girl. And we went through all of that. Just like they say in these later days, they talked about the thing called a welfare, and said they were getting on it to have a baby so they could have an income. Well, baby, that ain't too far removed from the way it was on the plantation. We would have children so we could have money at the end of the year, and a lot of times it was just to buy necessities, shoes on the feet of our children. We would work with 19 children. We would work and pick 40 to 50 bales or more at the end of the year. And master, he never, when we settled up at that commissary, master never balanced the scale in our favor. It was always, we almost broke even. Baby, it was a constant struggle. From slavery to sharecropping. And a lot of us, old plantation folk, that sat on this here front porch like the one I got. We remember that they used prison and they used sharecropping. And both of them was just another form of slavery. And women was having children just to get extra rationing or getting money so at the end of the year, the ones they already had, they could put shoes on their feet and maybe a warm coat on their back. And I want to tell you, that's how they encourage women to have so many children. Not all of them, but some of them, baby. Did that answer your question and help you in it at all, child?
It surely did. And I thank you so much for sharing with us that very, very touching history. If there are no other questions, Mama, we're going to let you go on and get your nap so that you
Baby, I sure appreciate it. And can I apologize to y'all because of this here hook 'em up You know, I got to kind of get used to it. Still ain't worked all the kinks out of it yet, but just help me remember, children, by passing it on. The day is, I believe, 155 years. 50-some years, 100 and some years, because you know I'm getting old and my counting ain't good as it was. My arithmetic ain't good as it used to be. But it's 100 and some years since they abolished slavery in America. The date is that anniversary.
Wow.
On January the 1st, we celebrate those days. A lot of folks say that we got what they call it, a whole lot of celebrations that don't have a lot of substance. But I want to leave this with you as the old lady go. The substance of celebrating and remembering is the pain that the mother suffered when she lost her child. The fact that our husband was beaten and we was lynched and raped and robbed of our liberty and our freedom. The substance is the hope, like Hebrews 11. The substance is the things that we hope for, a brighter future for our children. And we'll keep on remembering. In the Emancipation Proclamation, there was a sentence there that said that do not stop us, do not repress or oppress us in any way, that if we wanted to celebrate, memorialize, and recognize the day that we were symbolically liberated, then let us do so. In that emancipation itself states, don't stop us in any way from recognizing from the struggles that our parents had to go through, and reminding our children like today that where we come from, we never want to go back. But the pain and the suffering and the death and the hope of a better tomorrow is the substance of what we hope for. So it's not symbolism without substance. The substance is our pain and sorrow and our struggle for freedom and liberation from an oppressed society. Thank y'all so much, baby. The old lady finna go now and take her a nap. And I'll be seeing y'all hopefully very soon.